Hey Ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to a quick impressions of the brand new game Survival Fountain of Youth. It's another survival early access title and I've got to say I've been really impressed. I was looking at this game last year and thinking it looks a bit janky. I gave the demo a go and I thought, wow, actually it's got a lot more going on under the hood. I'm pleased to say after spending 8 hours, this is just the first impressions, and a couple of hours on the demo last year, that it is a really cool little survival game. It's got a real blend of others that I am going to have to mention, and I know people hate comparing, but some of you guys really just prefer it. Gets you in the mood and you'll know exactly what type of game it is. This is pretty much Long Dark versus Stranded Deep, but less janky. Certainly in the case of Stranded Deep, maybe not so much Long Dark. You have to craft, and whenever you craft items or break items down, it takes a series or amount of time. So half an hour, 3 hours to chop some trees, dismantle some wreckage. You get the idea. Crafting and cooking also takes up time. So you can whiz through the days pretty quickly and makes it a prime candidate for 100 days in the future. It's definitely a more hardcore experience, especially if you're playing it on the default game mode. But very much like Long Dark, they had the same sort of similar system. You could explore, go through the open world, but anytime you crafted, you had to pretty much go through time and check that you had enough food and water to last while you slept or did an activity. Of course, then comes the Stranded Deep comparisons, where obviously we're in tropical paradise exploring, but this game's got so much more to it and it seemingly has a story that actually makes sense and is much more interesting and fleshed out. It's the 16th century and you are part of a explorer's group of ships going out to find maybe the fabled Fountain of Youth, or maybe you don't even realise that's happening. And of course disaster strikes, storms hit and you're all washed up across various different islands. You on your own are trying to survive and try and find what happened to the rest of your crewmates. What I encountered when I washed up on shore was a challenging but okay environment to get started on the beach where you're normally safe in a lot of the games, and the further you go in exploring into the centre of the island, the more danger you're going to come up against. Whether that's from creatures like the varied amount of dogs and coyotes or jackals that will attack you, or snakes, scorpions and more, and maybe the afflictions that you'll suffer like sunburn, indigestion that could lead to diarrhea making you more thirsty. Of course, being poisoned's no fun either, and it's got that big mix of stuff that you might have seen in other games again, like Stranded Deep or even Green Hell, to a very big degree. There's a huge amount going on in the menus, and you will spend a lot of time in the menus, taking a look at what you're going to need to craft the next crafting station or get the next tool and upgrade, and there's various different recipes that really require a lot. Hunting down resources can be a real chore, but there are some nice little quality of life things that this game has, like a fully fleshed map that you get to explore by climbing the highest trees and opening up points of interest around you. Alright, it's not a new concept, but in a lot of survival games you don't really get a chance to see everything or where you need to go for resources straight off the bat, and this does pretty much the good job as long as you've got some charcoal to mark on the map. It's things like this that stop you raging out immediately that you can't find a specific type of tree, as there seems to be about 10 different ones that you require 10 different types of branches from. But without this, definitely it would be a bit overwhelming and, like I said, a bit annoying. So they're just about stop it from being rage inducing. The resources themselves are kind of spread out quite sporadically as well, so certain things that you expect maybe to see rocks, where you won't find a place where you can actually pick up large amounts of rocks until you go much deeper or further out. So that balance of resources, like I said, sometimes can be frustrating that you need to go quite far to get something, but the map is always seemingly bigger than it seems once you actually get running around, and making sure that you've got full energy and stuff can help a lot getting to places quicker. There are other islands to explore. In fact, you're given the kind of guidance to pretty much head to the next one over, and that's pretty much the objective of the game, to get you through the tutorial and learn about the islands I hope that you're initially on. And it looks like they've got a further 3 or 4 regions that they will be opening up during early access. I've got to say I was pretty impressed by all this. Most early access games do often have a large world and a pretty empty world with not much going on. Apart from the bit of a slog sometimes to get certain resources, this world is jam-packed with events happening. I'll bet some of them are repetitive. Once you've come across your 8th or 9th dog attack, you are about sick of hearing their yelps. But the story really makes up for that, pushing you along, whether it's lore notes or artifacts you find from ancient civilizations or following the footsteps of your fellow crew members. It's cheesy, some of it, read in a pretty droll American accent. I think I would like to see them maybe employ a Latin or Spanish accent actor in the future maybe. But of course, I guess this could be an historian reading just the encounters and the records of what went on before. For years I complained that survival games didn't invest enough in the story. Green Hell came along and changed that a lot, but now we're seeing other games really take note of this as well. And even as something as small and static as a few animations really help push this and make it a cut above others. There's various different landmarks that sometimes you'll have to gather certain artifacts to get a fuller picture of a kind of mural on a wall, and all this just really adds and blends a nice little story together. In fact, you can't move more than 100 yards it seems without coming across some ancient statue or remnant of these lost civilizations or where your crew previously were. The game does have a skill system added to it as well, and there are things that you can increase passively over time. The more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. Things like skinning, cooking, crafting, etc. So you do get rewarded for going off the beaten path or taking the high hill that you can see. Obviously with some ruins above, you will get a reward out of it, as often you're greeted with some extra perk points also. It's got base building in it, although it's more campsite kind of base building, but you can put foundations down and walls and stuff. I'm yet to see if that gets fleshed out anymore, and there's different varieties of stuff. But the real winner is definitely the sailing for me. You can use the raft to go ahead, or the ship that you can get upgraded to go and explore some of the brand new regions, and it does it pretty much like a fast travel point. Or just use it to get around the islands a bit quicker and explore some of the smaller little rocky outcrops that exist around that also have stuff going on. As of yet, no punishment for a lack of wind. You'll go along at a nice chunky speed, and the game is kind of pretty. It's got a bit of a janky old school vibe to it sometimes, but moments when the lights come in over the hills, or it's about to set, or when you're full out in the sunshine looking at the coast and the gorgeous blue water, yeah, it's definitely got some pretty spots as well. There's some melodic music and some danger music as you'd expect, although that does get a bit old pretty quickly. For sure, I think combat at the moment is probably its weakest point. It feels like everything is better done by throwing or using ranged gear. And a lot of the enemies you can actually avoid very quickly or easily, and obviously hit them with a good weapon or two. That said, I was playing it on the slightly easier setting because I had tried the demo and I do remember it being quite unforgiving. So yeah, it's all about your preference. And I like that. They've got really good support for controller options. It wouldn't surprise me if they try and get this in maybe game preview on Xbox. I highly recommend they do, because I think this will do bangers on console too. I got really turned off by Medieval Dynasty. I had everything I seemingly wanted. Story, a bit of simulation and management of your village, but I found it quite boring and grindy, and just the payoff wasn't really there, and it was also kind of boring. Fountain of Youth doesn't necessarily fall into them same traps. The story is there to illuminate the world and make you feel like you're actually walking through it, rather than just be told something by an NPC for 5 minutes. There's actual decent points of interest to go and explore. You want to go and explore every inch of the island in case there's something you've missed. I'm sure the grind is definitely there for some of the more advanced constructions and building materials and stuff that I've not really gone into too much. And yeah, we could do with more variety in terms of some of the creatures you'll face. Although it's not like Ark where you're attacked by dogs or killed or mauled every 2 seconds. I mean, there are a lot of dog attacks, as I may have mentioned, but it's not certainly that challenging or kind of frustrating that you might get with other games. You can simply run away from a lot of encounters, especially things like the harpies that hit you from above high. For sure, dealing with complaints like actually getting poisoned or running into sharp bushes, they can get a bit tedious. But as long as you've got a good supply of healing items and you've worked it out to always have one of each on you, and you've got used to the kind of punishing, I would say, cumbrance system. As always, there's ways to improve it. You can get better bags and increase how much storage you can hold. But it is one of them frustrating things where you will spend a lot of time chucking resources away. Even the most prepared explorer that always dumps everything off will find that they quickly become over encumbered just on one little jaunt to go and get some bamboo. So I'd like to see a little bit more improvement in that, or some more direct skills, unless I just missed it, that directly give you more encumbrance. But overall, I'm really impressed. There's a lot going on and it can be overwhelming with the different menus and stuff. It's more like an RPG survival game in that element. And if you really didn't like the mechanics of the long dark, where you literally will have to see your screen go forward in time 3 hours after doing something, then you're not really going to enjoy this game. But this game is cheap as chips at the moment. It's only like £17. I think it's mainly going to be like $19.99 when it actually goes out of its 10% early access phase, and I highly recommend you actually give it a shot. One of the better, more recent survival games I've played, certainly in early access, and I'm sure it's going to go from strength to strength. A really nice direction with the different regions that they could add and do so much with. Nice story, and yeah, a good amount of grind for the real hardcore survival fans, but lots of ways to play with the options to choose to make it easier, and I just really appreciate little things like making sure the control support is there from day one. Doesn't look like they're planning any kind of multiplayer. With the way that time does go forward, I couldn't see how that would actually work. As yet, they've not announced any plans for console, I do believe, and they may just be waiting until they go all the way through early access. But yeah, it's looking a really good start, a really polished experience, no real bugs, a bit of jitteriness. I was running a 390 with a 107, whatever Intel, and very occasionally it would get a bit stuttery, and I wasn't necessarily running it at its ultra settings. But no real complaints, no crashes in my 8 hours of playing it recently, and yeah, just a really good vibe all round. So pick it up for sure and see if you can strike it rich and become young again in Fountain of Youth. If you found this video helpful and you want to see me actually play more of it, then come and check out my 100 Days channel where I've been live streaming Fountain of Youth, and I will continue to do so over the coming weeks. Playing old and brand new survival games with then a finished 100 Days video after a couple of weeks of streaming. Go and check it out, the link will be in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see you for more gaming survival news, gameplay and guides reviews soon. Bye bye.